Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to another career transition week session. My name is Hank, and I am a part of the WGU's Career Professional Development Team here at WGU. This week, our career transition week is designed to support anyone thinking about making a career pivot, exploring new opportunities, or just redefining what success means to them. And it's a great time to hear about real stories from our alum that gain practical strategies and find encouragement as you navigate your own professional journey. Today's session, Crafting Your Post-Service Career Strategy with EJ, will help translate your skills into meeting those demands. And without further ado, I will pass it over to EJ to start his presentation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hank. First and foremost, thank you all for taking time to join me this afternoon. I know time is our most precious commodity, so I'm very grateful that you've decided to share your afternoon here for an hour with me today. I'm going to bring up these slides. All right. Can you see those slides all right, Hank? Perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So cover down on the agenda. I do apologize. I know there's a ton of information on this slide, so I'm going to work left to right with you. The agenda, this is what we're going to cover down over the next hour. And then we're going to I want you to walk away kind of with a better idea of how to translate your military experience to fulfilling career success. I want you to hopefully come to my program after we get through with this conversation so that we can support you as a part of this process. And then the big thing, no matter what you do, right, from one veteran to another, supporting each other, I want you to make sure that you leverage the timeline that you have in front of you to find success. So that's kind of what we're going to get out of this. One thing that I've seen since I've been in the transition space supporting veterans and service members is we are always typically afraid to ask for help. So I put this quote here from Simon Sinek, just really to kind of single out that you don't have to go this route alone, right? It is okay. It's completely acceptable to seek help and get advice. And then the bottom piece that I put down here is a stat. And the reason I put this stat here is because it is crazy serious that you take what I talk about today to heart, because 85% of jobs are landed through a personal connection or relationship. And I will caveat as I go through these slides, I did not appreciate the value that I got from the program I participated in when I utilized 4Block as a part of my transition from the Air Force until I was on the other side of hiring individuals at USAA. So I will go ahead and keep pressing forward. All right, so EJ O'Brien, a little bit about myself. I started off in the Air Force back in 2000. I started as an admin/comms troop. Halfway through my career, the Air Force came and told me, hey, we need you to do intelligence. So I pivoted to be a geospatial intelligence analyst, supported the DCGS, Distributed Common Ground System, for about 8 years. Ended up retiring out of Air Force Personnel Center as the functional manager for enlisted intelligence assignments. As I was getting ready to get out, I was thinking very hard about what did I want to do in post-life. And I knew I did not want to sit in a SCIF or a secure facility and have no windows, have no Apple Watch, no cell phone, and work shift work. So part of my transition was really coming up with what I called my PACE plan. That's my primary, my alternate, my contingency, and my emergency plan of what I was going to do post-military service. As I went through 4Block, I had a chance week over week to meet different companies. And the number one company that I came out of this program really having a desire to work with was USAA. I had set my sights on becoming a project manager. I know it's a little cliche because about 90% of the veterans that I talk to all want to do project management. And that's just because we think that our skills translate best into that. I'll tell you that's probably a fallacy. You can do anything you want. But needless to say, I put all of my time into getting my project management professional certification. I ended up working through hiring our heroes to land a skill bridge at HOH or at USAA. And the crazy thing is, I'll talk about some of the stuff we do in 4Block and how it impacted me from a personal standpoint. But everything worked out. I got a skill bridge at USAA. I ended up applying for a role while I was a part of my skill bridge, ended up interviewing, getting a role, and I worked at USAA for about almost 3 years after I got out of the Air Force. It was a great time. It was a great corporation. And as I was doing that, I continued to give back to 4Block as a career readiness coach, and then as a career readiness instructor for our cohorts here in Tampa, Florida. I noticed that every day I had an opportunity to support the veteran space, I felt more fulfilled. So as time went by, I had an opportunity to work full-time with 4Block, which is where I pivoted to this past January as the Southeast Regional Programs Director. And at that point, it was more to me about finding something that was purposeful and I could feel like I was doing something that mattered day in and day out, that I was very lucky to have the stars align and I landed in that role. So that's a little bit about where I've been, where I'm at now, and where I'm trying to drive. So I'm going to continue my education purpose. Moving forward, I'm looking to start a doctorate program here in January, targeting the veteran space and nonprofit accountability, some of those elements. But I think, and I hope for all of you, as you start to make your pivot, we can really kind of look at what do you truly want to do? What can we do that aligns to your skill sets and desires, and hopefully to a place you want to be and get you teed up for success. So that's a little bit about me and why I do what I do and how I ended up landing here at 4Block after being retired now for the past 4 years. So timing and when to start. I think this is the most important part, and all of you are at a different place in your journey. We support student veterans that are primarily 100% focused on doing school. I know I utilize Western Governors University as a part of my military journey for upskilling and development, because that competency-based education model really supported my needs as trying to be a full-time working professional and finishing my degree at the same time. So for all of you, depending on where you're at from degree completion or from separation from the Air Force or from the military, from the military, I would caveat that you want to start no later than 18 to 12 months prior to separation. If you're getting out next week, and I've talked to people that are in that situation, you're probably way behind the 8 ball. So from a timing standpoint, I would tell you 18 to 12 months out, start really thinking about what do you want to do next, right? Look at programs. It doesn't have to be 4Block. There are a ton of programs out there. I had the most success through 4Block, so you could leverage 4Block from a career readiness standpoint. I also leveraged O2O to help cover down on my project management professional certification. And I also looked at, and I leveraged American Corporate Partnership. So I'll talk a little bit about each of these programs and how they impacted me moving forward, but I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of these resources as we go through this conversation today. Once you start to get a little bit closer to your separation, that 12 to 6 month mark, you really got to start dialing in your sight picture on what you want to do next. So that's where you're looking for those internships, skill bridges. If you can find an apprenticeship somewhere, start lining those up, having conversations. And all throughout this process, your network is going to be critically important to ensuring that you have opportunities waiting for you as you go through these stages. And the last 6 months, that's really where you want to be bringing it all together. I did add a bullet on here this morning. I was going back and forth on it related to financial readiness. And I just want to tell you, the more financial stability you have going into this job journey is going to give you greater discretion on what you truly can do next. So I put that in there today because I wanted to make sure that that was a part of your calculus, because it's really going to be the difference between you having to get a role versus being able to find a role that you want. We talk about that a little bit more. And please, as Hank said at the start, if you have any questions, raise your hand or throw it in the chat. We will get after those. All right, so self-reflection. This is the big one for me. This is my favorite part about transition. As I mentioned earlier, when I came into the Air Force, I was pretty much told I was going to be a admin/communications troop. Then I was told I was going to be an intelligence troop. I never really had a say in what I wanted to do. So after 21 years getting out of the Air Force, getting to pick what I wanted to do was a serious decision because I hadn't had that opportunity previously. I started to map out, where do I want to live? So my family is from St. Petersburg, Tampa, Florida area. So that became a place that was a non-negotiable. I knew I needed to get back to the St. Pete, Tampa general surrounding area to be close to home. Second bit was, what skills did I have to be successful or to find successful post-military work? And then lastly, which companies that were in the area that I decided I wanted to land aligned with my skill sets, but also aligned to my personal values. And that's why USAA was so attractive to me, because of all the people I met through different companies that I talked to, their corporate culture, their disposition, the different people that I interacted with really shone through to me that it was a place I could see myself being long term. And it was a great organization to be a part of. I caveat down here, right? Really think through your values, strengths, and passions. I know I mentioned in the previous session about the financial stability and security, but I say that truly because at this point, I'm hoping that all of you can sit down and reflect on what does success look like to you, or what does success mean to you. A lot of people I talk to, success is equated to dollar signs. Some people I talk to, success is equated to balance, still making a living, but having the ability to be with family and do other certain elements, right? And there's no right or wrong answer, right? It's what's most relevant to you all. So I share this as truly sit back and reflect. This slide comes from our fourth block in our 4-block program called Triangulating Your Career Starting Point. And these are some of the exercises that we run the students through. But as I put down here on the bottom, it is an interesting time because this will be the first time that you truly have a say in what you want to do next. And we want to make sure that you have a leg up and you're able to put all of your weight of effort into getting to that desired outcome. All right, so now you've done great things in the military. And I was having a conversation this morning with a colleague, and it's funny because you could be 18 years old handling a multi-million-dollar account, and for you all, it's normal. You don't even think about it. And I was at an HR conference yesterday, and they were like, well, that's just fluffs. People are making stuff up on their resume, so I'm not even going to entertain that. And I'm like, well, no, it's not fluff. It's what the military does. They can't even conceive that we would give an 18-year-old, ownership of an account of X amount of millions of dollars. It's just not realistic. So making sure that you translate your military skills into civilian value is critical. And you've got to do it in a way that resonates with those folks that have no shared experience or understanding that what you're saying is actually even feasible. So one of the resources that paid huge dividends for me through my transition journey, I had made reference on a couple of slides ago to American Corporate Partnerships. I have a mentor that I still keep in touch with today. His name is Jack Waters, and he's with MetLife out of North Carolina, and he was my corporate mentor that I got through American Corporate Partners. I had asked one of my military colleagues, what advice do you have for reaching out to ACP? They said, the only advice I would give you is ask for a non-military affiliated mentor, because they won't know anything you're saying. And I tell you, Jack spent a ton of time working with me to ensure that my resume and all of my bullets that I had outlined didn't speak anything to military service, and it was all easily understood by private sector civilian folks. So I would say find somebody to help you. We already have a good leg up, right? Every branch of service that we have comes with a STAR method: situation, task, action, result. You've already got the stuff there. You've got the metrics. All you've got to do is change that that verbiage into a digestible, translatable civilian speak. And our program is another program that leverages tools and one-on-one coaching to support you through that journey or process. And 4-block aside, if any of you ever needed help with anything like this, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to either help you myself or connect you with people that can. So things that you want to try to do, right? Everyone's coming out of here with NCOERs, fit reps, enlisted performance reports. Get all of those things documented down, get them all collected, take your Privacy Act information off of them, organize them out. What I did was I copied all of my bullets into segments of leadership, financial management, all of those different spaces that you're going to potentially apply for against, right? Consolidate those items down and then put them into what we call a master resume. This is going to give you a quick, ready, accessible tool that you can pull from the hip and load in points to round out your targeted resume as you're looking to go forward. All right. And the last piece, this is the most critical, right? I mentioned very, very early at the start, 85% of roles are hired through networking and relationship building. Well, 70% of those are done via online platforms. So I cannot emphasize enough to you the importance of LinkedIn and strategies to find success. Make sure you've got a good profile photo. I was talking to an individual earlier this summer. He sent me his LinkedIn profile, and it looked like he was at a party at the club in his picture. And I told him, I said, LinkedIn's going to do great things for you to either get a job or it could keep you from getting the job you want. So I quickly helped him adjust his photo to something a little bit more professional. Your headline, right? LinkedIn is all about you as an individual, as a holistic rounded out person. This isn't just about a specific job. This is how you're going to advertise yourself as an individual that people will want to say, hey, could I see myself working with this person 40 hours a week? So that's why it's so important that you capture your information here. The other piece that's important with LinkedIn is they leverage algorithms and different scraping tools so that when recruiters do searches, you have the appropriate keywords or tags or information present to really have you elevate to the top of those recruiting searches. That's where the experience components are important, and really your skills and endorsements. So your skills, you can have up to 50 different skills associated to your profile. We will go deep dive into all of this. Some of our classes with 4Block are taught by LinkedIn, but it's really imperative that you get those skills lined up to the roles and occupations that you want. So when the recruiters are doing the searches, you're coming up and they're seeing that it's there. The end all be all silver lining, if you can get them, are endorsements from colleagues or leaders or other individuals you've worked with throughout your career to actually put an endorsement on there. Because every time you go to do a job application, they usually say, hey, do you have some references? How awesome is it if your references are already there outlined on your LinkedIn profile for those hiring managers and talent acquisition folks to see without even having to reach out to anybody? So those are great things that you can kind of do now to prep the battle space so that you can find success later. And activity and engagement, volunteer work, reaching out and doing things in the community, leading events, functions, that shows the kind of character and personality of the people that they might be bringing into their team. So all of these things that you can put on LinkedIn are going to give yourselves a leg up to find success as you move forward. All right. You guys are letting me off easy. No questions out there, Hank? Nothing in the chat?
Nothing.
All right. All right. All right. So next up, networking and relationship building. So one thing we teach at 4Block, as you're trying to establish relationships, the gold standard of this relationship is the sponsor, right? You want somebody that is willing to put their reputation on the line and refer you into their organization. So as you think about building your network, right? If you don't know what ERGs are, these are employee resource groups. Most organizations have employee resource groups. When I was at USAA, I was the vice president of our diversity, equity, and inclusion cell for Tampa. And underneath of that, we had 9 different employee resource groups focused on different demographic groups. Those are still in existence today. But of those subsets, the veteran category typically falls in. So you have either veterans themselves or allies of veterans. Check folks' LinkedIn profiles. Maybe they're working at an organization you want to be. They usually caveat if they're part of one of these organizations because it shows that they're doing inclusive community type related work. Feel free to reach out to those individuals first because they're more apt to probably entertain an informational interview or conversation with you. So just one thing you can look for as you're doing your search for resources. The other bit that you're going to find on LinkedIn are groups and communities. Look for other like-minded transition assistance program related groups. Look for professional groups or networking groups for veterans. Every veteran, right, we are a part of a larger family. We all have a shared significant emotional event that we've experienced through, regardless of your service affiliation, a basic training or boot camp of some sort. And what I've noticed since I've been out of uniform is we were always willing to help one another out. So leverage those LinkedIn communities to your benefit. And then look for local events that are advertised via the LinkedIn community. The other piece that I would tell you that really stood out to me, we had an individual that wanted to work at USAA in Tampa. They could not crack the code for getting into getting hired. And then we were doing a volunteer function and I saw them there and they were just volunteering with USAA because we had posted that we were going to be doing a Habitat for Humanity function. And the individual ended up making great rapport and building enough respect of the team that he found up getting a job ultimately, right? And that kind of lends itself a little bit left to this bottom piece is give back. As you're building your network, you want to make sure that you come off genuine and not so transactional, right? So it's got to be, yes, there's always going to be something in it for you, but it's got to be, how do you support the overarching network and give back to those folks you're also sometimes asking for support? Make it more of a genuine relationship. So I'll pause there. No other, oh, here we go. Exactly. That's a great comment, Aaron. Sometimes I think it's overwhelming. If you wait till the very end and then you jump into a tap session, you get so much information, you almost don't know what to do with what they're giving you. So that's a great point. Leverage those resources and find out as much as you can as you're in the throes of working through there. Yeah. Right. All right. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit into 4-block, how our career readiness program works. And I will caveat one thing Aaron said, and I'm very sensitive to, especially as a service member and some of my experiences that I've had since transitioning. 4-block is a completely free program. There are so many amazing resources available to you. American Corporate Partners, Candorful for interviewing, hiring our heroes, O2O, IVMF, and most of those resources, if not all, are free in some capacity. So really make sure you exhaust your resources that don't cost anything before you start tapping into your GI Bill benefits or some of those other elements. So just wanted to throw that out there. So how does 4-block's Veteran Career Readiness Program work? And of all of our offerings, this is truly our flagship offering. And this is the program that I leveraged as a part of my transition from military service. So 4-block's process is really about giving you all academic materials to round out self-study and reflection. It's about creating a network, an enduring network of individuals you meet along the way that are tied to corporate America, and having you aligned with coaches, instructors, to really build out a community feel so that you land with confidence and have a support network as you potentially even navigate into a new geography if you're moving post-service. And then the instructors are there to make sure that it's all coming together. They're there to make sure that you're having access to these resources and to these communities of individuals. And all of those elements, as we bring them together week over week for 10 weeks, is the experience that you're going to get from part of our program. So 10 weeks, first time I say that, everybody's like, oh goodness, 10-week program, that's crazy. Well, it's only 2 hours a week, one day for 10 weeks. So 20 hours total. You're going to have about 3 to 5 hours total of self-study as a student if you participate in this program. So, all right, so how does this program work? What are the typical sessions? So I did kind of hit on here a little bit, 3 to 5 hours per week commitment, 10 weeks long. Our goal is that you meet with no less than 8 to 10 host companies. On average, we have 9 host companies. Your first week will be an orientation, and then every subsequent week of lesson materials will be at a host company if you're in an in-person cohort, or we'll be virtually meeting with the host company if you're in a virtual cohort. And like I said, it does show here, right? We have one-on-one coaching available. You'll notice the way we have this time block broken out. Over half of the session is dedicated to you having time and access to those individual corporate host partners. And that's because we emphasize the importance of networking and relationship building. If you go all the way back to the beginning of this presentation, it talked about how 80% of jobs, if not 85% of jobs, are landed through networking. That's why we put the most of our time around ensuring you have a chance to show who you are to these individual partners. The other thing that's cool about this, there are a lot of stigmas and stereotypes about veterans. Every time they have a chance to talk to a veteran that's squared away and shows up professionally and can articulate their background and where they're at, where they want to be, and why they're doing things, it always helps veterans get a little bit further down the line in the corporate setting, especially if it's a civilian with no prior military exposure or background. Right, so here's a condensed slide. I know there's a lot of stuff on here, but we'll kind of touch through this real quick. On the left here is our Veterans Career Readiness syllabus. This is kind of what we do week over week. If you look at line items 1 through 5, think about that as us helping you build your personal brand. Who you are, talking to your story, giving your elevator pitch. Once you kind of understand what you're going to be about, what you're looking for, we help you understand the nuances of creating those genuine, authentic relationships that you can nurture. I will tell you, relationship building and networking is hard. The bigger your network, the more you have to cultivate it. It's like a garden, right? So you have to make sure you're having warm touch points out there. A lot of people get on LinkedIn. They do LinkedIn really, really well, and then they just disappear once they get their job. Well, what you'll see is every like 2 years, somebody might be pivoting or coming up on maybe some stuff's happened in their organization. Then you see people wake up again on LinkedIn. So we talk through strategies of how to know if people are active and things like that as well as you go through the program. And my favorite block that we talked about a little bit earlier is that triangulating your career starting point block. And this is where we really hone in on where do you want to be, what do you want to do, and what are your non-negotiables, and what does success look like? And in this block, we really kind of help you map out, do you have the knowledge and skills and abilities to find success right now? Or maybe you have gaps and deficits that you need to upskill around. And that's where organizations like Western Governors University is phenomenal, because you can quickly jump into a degree program or track that might come with certifications, or it'll just help you get a background or degree in the space that you're trying to pivot to. A lot of folks do MBAs or things like that as well when they're getting out to try to round out their business expertise prior to pivoting into corporate sector. And then putting it all together, like I said, we have either corporate host partners or LinkedIn, even for that matter, in some instances, helping our teams and students build out their LinkedIn and online professional presence. And this is huge because every organization today utilizes LinkedIn. Even Western Governors University, I'd be willing to bet some money, utilizes LinkedIn not only for outreach and marketing, but also for recruitment and talent acquisition purposes. So LinkedIn is a necessary evil, and you all will have to get comfortable in that space. Crafting your resumes. We're going to leverage this tool called CareerFlow. Everyone's going to get a paid subscription to that for a year. And the way that CareerFlow works is it will help you ensure that your resume lines up to a targeted job description, and then it will give you an application tracking system score to make sure that all of your keywords and whatnot hit effectively. The CEO of that company, Praneet, I think he said his stat is 70% of the folks that leverage that pool have success in getting to the interview process of the application phases. The last piece, or not the last piece, the sixth item that we have here is career mapping. And the reason I like this one is in the military, we're used to a very linear pathway. We know E1 to E4, school, promotion, E5, E6, school, promotion, same thing on the officer side. In private sector, it's much different. You can start out at point C and jump to point F. There's no real rhyme or reason. Sometimes most organizations have very fluid structures. So the benefit of this session is that we talk you through, maybe you've got great skills, soft skills, you've got great experiences, but you just don't have the domain expertise. So we can work with those folks in the organizations and come up with strategies for how you might be able to start maybe 2 steps back, knowing that you're going to be able to catapult forward 5 steps because you understand how that organization does growth and development. Or we give you the appropriate questions to ask as you do your informational interviews. And then, of course, interviewing successfully is really that. We're going to get you sets and reps and get you out there doing some mock interviews with organizations. I'm really excited for our Tampa cohort this go around. We're going to be doing mock interviews with USAA, same thing for our Charlotte cohort. And then across the board, a ton of different companies are going to be helping our students do mock interviews. And this is about ensuring that you show up and you apply all of the information that we've been putting together from week 1 into presenting yourself well, because at the end of the day, the resume might get you there, the relationship might get you there, but you've got to land that interview to get to the final step of this entire process. So that interviewing successfully is about making sure you show up successfully and you get that knocked out of the park. Another organization that we partner with is called Candorful. I utilize Candorful for my process. It's a really neat program because it connects you with industry aligned professionals to give you a mock interview. And they only gave you 3 when I went through. I have to go back and see if they've adjusted that since then. But they will give you no kidding, candid feedback. And I was like, crush my soul, like give it to me straight. And they did. Like they gave me the best feedback possible because that's the feedback I needed. EJ, when you get asked this kind of question, you make this face. 85% of communication is nonverbals. So they were setting me up for success, even though it was a little bit painful. But I would definitely leverage those Candorful interviews to save for the roles that you're really, really, really hoping for. But that's a great partner, another great resource outside of the 4-block community. Navigating the job offer process. I think I might have been telling Hank or somebody earlier today, I love this one because the only salary negotiation I did prior to coming in the Air Force was going from bagger to cashier, and that was it. So I didn't know anything about total compensation. I didn't know anything about shareholdings, bonuses, how it was going to impact my taxes. And that's another thing you all need to be considering, right? We get a ton of tax-free benefits while we're in uniform, BAS, BAH, some of our healthcare benefits. When you have to start paying taxes on the full amount of your total pay, it's going to be a little bit of a wake-up call. So things you need to take in mind and consider. And this is a great block to help you understand what's even in the realm of possible to talk about while you're going through that job offer process. And then it's all kind of building to the point to where you've interviewed, you've gotten your offer, you're having negotiations for what you're going to get from a final pay and compensation standpoint. And then we're going to talk about how you're going to show up well and knock it out of the park for your first 90 days. And that's really about getting to the tipping point of providing value to where the organization is no longer supporting you, but you're supporting the organization, teaching you strategies for identifying and finding those centers of gravity and the people that are doing the work and how to become allies with them. You're leveraging a lot of the resources that we gave you along the way from a relationship and network building standpoint. And that last session is also typically the session that we co-host as your graduation. The cool part about this entire process is every student that participates in the 4-block program is going to leave with one of these 6 core deliverables. That's going to be able to tell your story. You're going to have an elevator pitch. You're going to have a targeted resume. Your LinkedIn profile is going to be at a certain degree of confidence to you're showing up on a certain percentage of recruiter searches based on the segment space that you want to apply for. You will have done mock interviews, and we're going to have a targeted list of companies for you that our coaches, our instructors, even myself, if you ask, will help you find inroads with those people within the organizations to start setting up informational interviews and get yourself on the right footing. Put this out here for reference. We have 19 cohorts right now. We are looking to grow as we expand in the next couple of years. All of the blue ones are in person and the red are virtual. Right now we have 10 virtual and 9 in person. I personally am responsible for Central Virtual, Southeast Virtual, Mid-Atlantic Virtual, and then Charlotte, Atlanta, and Tampa for in person. And then I have colleagues that handle the Northeast, Midwest, and then the West region. And we have a global virtual cohort for any of our students that are potential time zone for the Central Europe. So that one meets on Tuesdays from 12 to 2 p.m. versus a 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening. And then, of course, we have over 1,300 employee partners. I'll talk a little bit more about that stat as we move into I think the next slide has some stats and metrics on it. And these are just some of our core partners that we participate with on a regular basis. But you figure every cohort is 10 weeks long. On average, we have 9 employers for each one. So there's a ton of employer partners you're going to have access to. And then if there's one that might not be participating in your cohort, we offer some other events that I'll talk about here in a second as well, where you're going to get exposure to those companies. And at the end of every cohort, we do a career engagement event where we bring those national employer partners together. So you'll still have a chance to connect with one of those veteran-friendly organizations that participate as a part of our overarching process. Right. You guys are really letting me off easy today. All right, so here's some stats. What are the benefits and outcomes of participating in 4-block? So really cool stat, 92% of our students find meaningful employment. The caveat to that is it is within 6 months, but I would also caveat to that, we are targeting students coming through the program at 18 to 12 months out from separating from service. We are also targeting student veterans that are participating full-time in degree programs, and we're also targeting career pivoting veterans. So based on where people are at in their transition journey can skew that number for success. Our average salary across the country is $101,000, which is awesome. And then we talked a lot about my favorite block, which was triangulating your career starting point and really getting after what do you want to do next, cultural fit, alignment. 84% of our students are retained within their organizations after 12 months of participating in our program. And I attribute that to people really knowing what they want to do and where they want to work. If you don't know anything about an organization, and I'm going to share this with my buddy Frank Anello after this call, he's one of our reps that helps out with Citigroup in Tampa. His first job lasted 5 days after he got out of the Marine Corps because he realized that the organization he was with was so disaligned with his personal value structure that he couldn't stay there any longer. So we hope that by the time you land a job with one of these companies coming out of our program, you truly know that you could see yourself as a fit there. The other cool thing about this stat up here at 92% success rate is we are not a placement firm. We don't guarantee any of you a job at the end of this. We just guarantee you an enduring network and a community of connection to find success, and it pays dividends to boot. And I think the other thing that I always love to talk to, 7,000 plus alumni, 60% of those alumni come back to be volunteers. And I highlight that because even for myself, I would not have given back to 4Block in the way that I have if it didn't truly impact me in a positive way. So that's just a testament to the program and how many people are willing to come back and support it. One thing, our CEO, Mike Abrams, has a video that he does, and he says in there, I can't believe I built something that so many people are willing to support, even when I know they could be doing other impressive things. And I think it resonates with me because it's true, right? This is a small but mighty team, and the veteran is our North Star. And it's just amazing to see the outcomes that participants have had as a part of our program. So, all right, demographics. We support all branches of military. This is from our spring session that we had just this last February to April. We do have a lot of Army folks that come through, so we need to bump up our sister service numbers. Air Force is coming in hot right behind the Army there. Second, we support all ranks. Enlisted, we have some flag officers that have been in the program, are going to be in the program this fall. So, I mean, anyone is welcome. Our only typical requirement is that you are working towards upskilling in some way, either a degree or credentialing program. But I'll put some information out here at the end if you're interested in coming through. But 94% of our students that participate in the program have a college degree. And that's typically because of the organizations that we're partnering with, right? We're going to be teed up for success if that matches your background. All right, now holistic support programs, so all encompassing. These are, the first thing that's on here is the most exciting thing to me, and this is our career and industry pathway events. I wish we had this when I came through the program back in 2021. Every month, 4Block offers a session which is either tailored towards a career field, thinking human resources, project management, or a specific industry. So these are the 9 defense industrial base industries listed out over here on the right. And I'm going to go to financial services. So we did one as I was starting to get settled in May of 2025 on financial services. And the kind of way that this is structured is we had 2 senior executives one from Wells Fargo and one from Blackstone, 2 of the largest financial services firms in the United States. They did a 45-minute moderated panel with our CEO, President Mike Abrams. They were answering questions straight to our veterans that were on the call with them. And then we had 13 financial service companies for the second half that were just there to meet, greet, talk to any opportunities they might have and things that they look for to find success in their organizations with all of our veterans that were participating on that call. And it was wildly powerful. All I kept thinking as I was listening and sitting on that was, man, I wish we would have had this when I went through the program, because it was a phenomenal resource to be able to reach out and touch like a senior partner at Wells Fargo and get insights on what their journey was to land where they were at, or even a veteran that was a senior vice president at Blackstone talking about how they went from officer school to finding successful outcomes in corporate America. It was just really impressive. We do have pivoting. We do have a military spouse and career readiness program. If you have any significant others or military affiliated folks that you want to try to get connected to that, please let me know. We can get you guys teed into those processes. We do that in partnership with another organization. We have a completely online course. So one thing I did not talk to, our program curriculum and content was built with Columbia University. Mike Abrams went back and we had a partner, T-Mobile, work with Columbia University to build a self-paced online course to really help you kind of narrow down what do you truly want to do post-service. So we've got a self-paced online course called Find Your Calling. That's another great resource. It's hosted out on edX. You guys are all free to utilize that. It's open to anybody military affiliated, even your dependents. If I had my daughter do it, she was getting ready to come out of high school. I think it's a great resource and tool. And then we have a podcast. Check it out. Our CEO, founder Mike Abrams, has some cool content on there, different people in the transition space. I mean, they're looking to get some updated sessions and segments out there here shortly. All right, let's see. Still no questions. Man, I'm getting off easy. That or my beautiful voice has serenaded everybody to sleep. All right, so closing action steps, right? What I hope you guys do, really sit down and know where you're at. Assess where you're at in your transition timeline. and think about what your next steps are going to be, right? And I think, Hank, I can pass you these slides and you can share them with everybody if they wanted them. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we can share it with the
Okay, cool beans. And then aim with purpose, right? As you guys are going through degree programs, make sure that all of your coursework and your studies or your credentialings that you're doing on the side, make sure that those things truly align with where you're trying to land from a career and professional standpoint. And then time is either going to be your biggest friend or your biggest enemy, right? So try to get out there and engage as early as possible, whether or not be 4-block or one of these other programs I've talked about today. Get out there as early as possible and start building your network. And the cool thing about this is the world is truly your oyster. This is your time to truly pick and decide what do you want to do next. So I'm going to end there. I'm 1 minute before the 15-minute mark, but see if we got any questions from anybody.
Yes, thank you, EJ. Everyone, the chat is open. If you have any questions, I'm actually going to give you the opportunity to come off mute if you would like. So just use the raise hand function so you can do so, and I'll make sure that we're able to take you off mute. But while we are waiting for questions to start coming through, I do have a couple questions myself, DJ. So I start kicking this off. Definitely with the transitioning out of the military, it could be a daunting task for some going into a new career. But what are some ideas or some examples that you can give to someone that is feeling imposter syndrome when they're transitioning out of the military into a new role? They may have been doing something for 10, 20 years in service, but now they're trying to go into a new role.
Yeah, that's a great question, Hank. I would tell you, give yourself grace, have friends, check in, find somebody at your new role of employment, and just ask for validation and check-ins every so often. I mean, I had a great friend that I made, Shannon Huber at USA when I first started there. She kind of kept me grounded. I was like, am I doing okay at this? Or I was like, am I being too overbearing? Like is my NCO hat coming out and am I ruffling feathers? So, I mean, it's good to have people that you can bounce ideas and thoughts off and just to make sure you're in a good place. I mean, depending on your family situation, leverage your partners, be a little bit vulnerable, talk to them, make sure they know how you're feeling. Transition is a joint effort. So don't forget to include your significant others as a part of that process. But yeah, I think give yourself grace. Let me see, RJ had a question here. Any advice on how to expand your professional network, insights on how to approach this? So first and foremost, I would say, just like being in the military, they set us up, whether or not you're in the Army, the Air Force, think about professional organizations that might be aligned to what you're already doing. I was at a SHRM, which is a HR certification event and conference yesterday. I participate in Project Management Institute events. Those are great ways to meet people face-to-face in person. If you know veterans that have already traversed this journey, connect with them, see if they can start helping you out with your LinkedIn profile. If they're using LinkedIn, if they've got connections or resources, leverage people that have already kind of traversed the path in front of you, and they should be willing to help. But just nobody gets it right the first time. Just get it started. That would be my advice for trying to build your network. I mean, just try to be authentic, right? And show up, act with humility. That's one of our core values, act with humility. And I think that is one of the most critical. Build trust and pursue excellence. So that humility piece is huge, especially for service members. I can't tell you, I was in an interview with a senior officer, and they basically told the hiring manager the entire interview how they were going to fix their team, do a better job than them, and get everything working the way it should be based on the conversation. And that person did not move on past that interview process. So humility is going to be key for you. And Aaron, I'm excited to have you in the Southeast Virtual Cohort. Graduation is going to be online, but we are looking to get some offsite get-togethers, one of our 4-block and Friends events. So I'll have to look you up in the system and see if you're in did you say you're North Carolina? Okay. We'll get you dialed into a session somewhere where you're going to get to connect with our alumni, some of the coaches or whatnot, but we'll get you tied into a session. So 100%, Aaron.
Yeah. If you have any other questions, go ahead, feel free to drop them in the chat. So if someone was we have a question now here. So Are there any specific industries where you've seen the most successful veteran transition? And that's from home.
I think across the board, Hyung, I think veterans, at least in the space where I work, and this is just my bias, I'm not pulling any stats on this. I think financial services veterans do a great job, and that's because of the compliance and regulatory elements associated with that space. And when we come out of the military, we're very used to regulations, oversight, audits, our inspector general type process. So I think I've seen a lot of success in that space. But I would tell you one of our greatest strengths, which is tied to resilience and being able to adapt and just overcome stuff. Every organization that I participate across every different industry has hired veterans. And as veterans have been employed in those organizations, it's really just a fact that they understand your ability to adapt. I mean, for sure, off the top of my head, to your question specifically, probably financial services is one of the ones that I've seen most, but anything really compliance or regulatory based, veterans have a lot of success in. And then depending on what you did while you were in uniform, if one core is a lot of information technology folks, you might see that more in that space, but for sure, anything compliance and regulatory related. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. And I think it did. I think yep. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, and Hank, I do want to throw one thing out there. You had mentioned about imposter syndrome and feeling a little bit in a different place. I want to get ahead of this. If you guys are all still in the transition process, when you start applying for jobs, don't take it personal. And I'm going to tell you that now because this is why I didn't appreciate 4Block until after I was on the other side of hiring. As you start to get into the throes of this, it's going to be like asking 300 people to go on a date with you and 5 of them saying yes, and you're going to feel really bad about yourself. Don't take that stuff personal. You got to know, right? Like a lot of times you're not even interacting with a human being. You're interacting with a technology platform that's just screening you out before you even get to the say, right? And when I was at USAA, we would run an advertisement to hire a project manager, and in the first 24 hours, there would be over 750 applicants. So after 2 weeks, you're looking at 2,500 to 3,000 people. How do you beat those odds? And that's how you get back to that stat of 85% of work is found through networking, because you hope that somebody refers you and you're on the left side of the stack, so you're automatically into that interview. Yeah, don't take that stuff personal as you're going through the throes. It's gonna be tough.
All right, thanks for that. And if you have any other questions, we have a few minutes left while we have EJ here. Now, I know, EJ, we spoke earlier about some of the events that you guys have coming up. Would you like to touch on those events or those particular industries that you guys will be focusing on?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Thank you, Hank. So on the 21st of August, I'm going to post our events hub in the chat. But on the 21st of August, we will have an industry pathway session on risk consulting and insurance. So we've got some great partners. Multitask real quick. All right, in the chat is our events hub. And then on our risk and compliance bit, we've already got our 2 core speakers are going to be PwC and AXA. So you're going to have a principal who's a senior leader up in PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and then Chelsea Thorpe, who will be a head broker of management at AXA. And then we're going to have AIG in there, Adobe, and they're still adding people to it. So a huge list of folks. But thanks, Aaron. Look forward to seeing you next at the start of the term. But yeah, great resource out there. Check those out. It's an amazing way to start building your network out ahead of time and making inroads with people that are already vested in supporting veterans. So thanks, Hank.
Great. All right, so it looks like we don't have any other questions. If we do have any other questions, what I would do, once I receive those questions, I will forward those over to you. So with that being said, that is going to wrap up today's session. I definitely want to thank you again for joining us, EJ. Do you have any other parting words before we conclude the session?
No, I just want to say thank you all for taking time to hear me out. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, please feel free to connect. 4Block related or not, we got to look out for one another. So thanks, Hank.
All right. Well, everyone watch out for the email that's coming to you either today or tomorrow. We'll have a short feedback survey. We'll really appreciate your feedback on this session. And again, I would like to thank you again, EJ, for joining us and sharing the great information you have. And I would like to thank everyone for coming, and have a great day and have a good time. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.